I stood calmly in the morning sun, waiting for my colleague to finish whatever it was he was doing. Standing atop a concrete slab under a tarp of some kind, fiddling with some kind of clearly mechanical device. My students, 5 of the best in my class, stood behind me, in perfect attention to what was going on. 4 cat girls and a fox girl all stood quiet and calm as they waited patiently for instructions, tails nervously flicking about, and ears twitching and moving to detect any potential noise. I looked around and saw a most interesting sight. An elven matron, one of the elder women, wearing a human police uniform standing to the side at a table with some human guns arrayed atop it. It wasn't abnormal to see my fellow Elvenar kin embracing human culture, but even for a situation like this, it was abnormal. The woman flirtatiously threw me a grin, and I nodded in response with a smile as I waited for whatever this was. Right then, I finally heard that heavy Mexican accent say, "Hola, compadres! Today is going to be a fun day," he said as he finally approached. "Mr. Martino, may I ask what exactly we are doing outside of school, inside of school hours?" I asked. "Take a chill pill, hombre. This is for their sake, not yours." He snapped at me and walked towards the girls. "Hey ladies, welcome to your senior firearms safety training course," he said. The girls' ears perked up and they stood to attention. Such good students. In accordance with school tradition and government mandate, you, the top 5 students in the school, will get the time to learn proper firearms safety training. Today we are joined by the local police chief, Matron Andreas, who will be conducting the course. Because you all have such a good academic performance, you will get the chance to play with my personal collection today, he gleefully said. The girls seemed apprehensive but excited as Matron Andreas approached them. "We will have a little shooting contest after you pass your safety training course, and the winner? Well, the winner gets this," he said, and picked up a nearby pink gun case. He opened it and showed them what was in it. "This is a FN-57 pistol. Well, it's a replica of one, actually. It's not a real gun. But it will have your name inscribed on it and put in the school trophy case for all to see. Everyone will get their extra credit, of course, but only one will get the glory." The girls suddenly perked up and went all giddy at the mention of extra credit. "But in the meantime, while you are doing that," he said, and gave a strange glance at me, "I have a little score to settle with your maestro." He returned to the platform he was working on and grabbed the tarp, removing it. 2 of the largest, nastiest-looking guns I had ever seen were perched atop it, both of which looked like they had been bolted to the ground by the bipod. I was not ignorant. I knew what these things were, but I hadn't seen these big ones up close. The girls, especially the conservative-leaning cat girl, Maria, squealed at the sight of the things, unsure of what to make of them. "Maestro Talavi, you passed your firearms safety course, yeah?" he asked. "Of course. I wouldn't be a teacher without one," I replied. "Then I don't need to do much except show you how it works. Please, your pick first, compadre," he said with a grin and gestured to go. I chose the one on the right side and sat next to it, waiting. "This one, I guess." "Okay." This beautiful beast is the Barrett M89B, or the Bravo model, chambered for 338 Lapua Magnum, which is the NATO version of the 50 Cal. These things pack a hell of a punch, so I bolted them down on a gimbal mount. "Let me show you how to do it," he said and got on his gun. He moved up to it and lay flat on his belly, choosing a right-handed posture. He showed me how to lay down in a comfy position and made sure to keep me straight and level. I noticed the gun wasn't loaded or readied to fire either, standard procedure. Neither had a scope mounted on it. I lifted the hefty beast in my hands, positioning my elbow and moving the stock to my shoulder. It took a bit to adjust to the odd posture, body tilted slightly to the side. Okay, you get it? Body always tilted slightly to the side. Let your stomach expand so it's easier to breathe. Easy to breathe, better to aim. Let me show you how to load and fire. I got a bunk casing here, he said, and positioned himself. Bunk casing? I've never heard that before, I replied. It's a standard shell with a plastic tip that disintegrates as it leaves the barrel. The shell itself is a miniature pneumatic piston that is made to fire at just the right amount of power to make the gun work properly without it actually firing a projectile or making noise. It's usually used for demonstrations in packed urban areas or testing mechanisms when you need to be quiet or can't use real ammo for obvious reasons. In short, it's a fake bullet that fires like a real bullet, he said. He loaded a magazine up with the round, that distinct spring-loaded click noise making my spine tingle. He lifted the gun up, slid the magazine in the slot, and locked it in place. He pushed the bolt forward, then locked down. It was loaded. "Test fire!" He yelled out, then pulled the trigger. The gun fired. A bit of recoil forced the barrel back. It was little more than the pop of a firecracker, and it didn't seem to break anyone's stride. Okay, reach. Bolt up, pull back, eject shell. Bolt back, down. "You got that?" he asked. I nodded silently and repeated his actions on my rifle. "I think so." "Okay, fantastic. Now we get to the hard part. Gotta calibrate your sights," he said. He got up and retrieved 2 scopes from a nearby case and handed me the smaller, fatter-looking one. "You got them elf eyes, ya? That's why you get the 2x ASIOG and I get the 12x SUSAT. We gotta calibrate them and set them so we are on the same level. Gotta make it fair, right?" he said with a strange grin. Yeah, good point," I said. He slotted the sight onto the top-mounted rail on my gun and helped me set and range it. He was correct. My eyesight was far greater than his, and it took us a bit of time to properly calibrate the scopes. "There. That last target downrange, top of the hill. Can you read the writing on it?" he asked. "No, I can't. It's blurry for me," I replied. "Then we got about the same. It's blurry for me too." "Okay, give me a minute. Let me go get the ammo," he said, and left for the nearby table. I took the chance to look over where the girls were. Each one had a set of specially designed headphones atop her head covering her ears. They were engrossed in their lesson, the officer showing them how to hold a pistol properly. He returned in earnest with 10 magazines for each of us, gently setting them down. He got settled into his spot and loaded a mag, as did I. "So you hear what happened at Lorelei High School last month?" I asked. "Oh yeah. Professor of the history class took his kids on a field trip in a tank, right?" he said as he readied his gun to fire. "Yup. Now the whole school goes on field trips. The GPA in the area skyrocketed when the kids learned they needed higher grades in order to participate. It's like a fire of discovery was lit under them," I said, racking a shell. "Yeah. You give people incentive to excel, they do. Funny, huh? Target is 800 feet due north, wind south by southwest at 5 miles per hour, gravity at 9.8, elevation from firing point at 183 feet. See that? 12 of them," he said. "What? Are those the discarded urns from the pottery class?" I yelled in surprise at the sight of 3 shelves in a line, each one packed with pottery. "Hey man, I did say they wouldn't go to waste. Ha!" He laughed with sarcastic glee and aimed down sights. "First round don't count. Use it to range your gun first, then we shoot for real." "Okay." I waited for a moment or two, then gently squeezed the trigger. I was not expecting the recoil, the boom, or that incredible feeling of the huge gun going off. My shoulder wrenched itself back, the recoil stopping short only because the base of the bipod had been bolted to the floor. I had inadvertently taken a deep, shock-fueled breath and gasped my surprise as to just how much power was in this thing. The gun going off had my girls reaching to cover their ears and squeaking in surprise at the sound. My gunfire was closely followed by his. I was able to collect my thoughts long enough to see my shell falling short by about 10 feet from the target, whereas he missed by about 4 feet, firing too high. He reached up and twiddled a knob on the scope, then racked another shell. I was not to be outdone here, so I steeled myself and racked a shell too. Just then, I heard a very distant crack of thunder, followed by the third shelf suddenly having one of its pots explode into a ball of dust. I looked behind me, and despite the distance nearly a mile off, I could see another man with a heavy rifle peering from a small clearing from atop the hill. I heard a noise from a radio. "Bingo! 100! You're shot, boys!" Crazy bastard insisted he show up. He wanted some practice, and I had spare urns, so... "Yeah. That's Jerry," Martino said with a chuckle. The art teacher is doing that? He's 2 miles from the target," I yelled in shock. "And with that gun of his, he can hit anything within 10 miles. We're lucky he's not showing off today. He's just here for fun, though. This is between you and me, compadre," he said, and gently squeezed the trigger. This time, his shell was true and blasted through the air with force. One of the pots, a blue one with a broken pattern, exploded with force into a plume of blue smoke. Not to be undone, I fired my own, and even though it was a glancing blow, the sheer force of the bullet hitting the target caused the pot to explode in a plume of purple smoke. 2-1-1, good shooting, boys. 11 remains, 2 out of 15. Came the crazy art teacher's voice over the radio again. So did you hear about Marigold High School too? That one in South Dakota? I said. Oh yes. Teacher took his students to a firing range with an anti-tank gun. He did everything properly, and even got the principal involved as he taught a few elves how to play with a cannon, Jerry said from the radio. Bastards put him on admin leave without pay for 2 weeks because he brought them on an unauthorized field trip. The whole school protested to bring him back. They wanted to fire him, but the students and faculty said no. I said, Puta. We all said in unison, and then loosed another volley of bullets. Martino missed his target by 2 inches as the wind shifted. Jerry hit his target center on, causing another pot to explode in a green puff of smoke. My shell missed my intended target due to the wind shift, but hit another instead, resulting in a puff of blue smoke. 3-1-2. Lucky shot, I said as I ejected a shell. By this point, the lesson for the girls had come to a temporary stop, each of them and their warden mesmerized by the display of 3 men at abnormal ranges taking shots at an array of pottery. What about the teachers' coalition at Wendelton University? They used one of those powered mech suits, didn't they? Martino said as he racked a shell. Oh yeah, I remember that one. Guy was teaching an engineering class and brought out a small construction mech for demonstration purposes. Poor bastard didn't see the cheese cannon coming, Jerry said. We all had a hearty laugh at the thought of engineering students refitting a construction mech to fire a pneumatic cheese cannon at their teacher as a prank. He gave them all a passing grade, of course, after getting the cheese cleaned up. I squeezed the trigger and let loose my 4th bullet, this time missing completely. Martino's bullet hit center on and resulted in a puff of pink smoke, while Jerry's round turned the smaller pot on the shelf into a puff of dust. 4-2-2, unlucky. Come on, guys, I know you're better than this, Jerry said. I heard a soft whisper from behind me as the girls were giggling among each other. Apparently, even Jerry could hear it as we all stopped what we were doing, glared at them and yelled, "No gambling on school time, young lady!" at the same time at the girls who were attempting to place bets on us. The girls all squealed and went back to attention, hastily returning to their lesson while their warden matron, Andreas, laughed her way back to her post to resume lessons. Jerry let loose a bullet, and a sudden heavy gust of wind threw the shell off course. The shell blasted through the air and hit a tree. The tree's trunk exploded, the heavy bark shattering with force, and the tree itself toppled, landing on Jerry's target with a thunderous crackle of broken ceramics and a puff of multicolored smoke. Well, I guess that's it for me then, Jerry said through the radio with a laugh. All right, I'll be with you guys in about 5. What the hell kind of weapon does that? I asked. A 408 Chaitak 85-volt Gauss-assisted rifle, that's what. Jerry was in the army before he came here, Martino replied as he racked his 5th shell. I readied mine, the new revelation throwing me off as I missed my next shot, and Martino scored a perfect hit on his with a bright puff of yellow smoke. 3-2. 1 mag out. 2 mags left, Martino replied. I am starting to realize how humanity managed to accomplish so much with these things, I said as I loaded a magazine. I often wonder why you were so quick to invite us in when you had so much power. Best way to get rid of an enemy is to make him a friend, Jerry said as he appeared behind us. Fair point, I replied and racked a shell. Wind, 4.8 miles south-southwest. Gusts of 15 to 22 miles northeast, Jerry said. Looked up at him and glared like I knew what that was. Oh right, sorry. Wind is soft from the right side, but gusts every now and then from the top left side. Check your radial compass in the scope, he replied. I followed direction and squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew through the air, and a puff of purple smoke signified a good hit, followed by Martino releasing his shot and getting a red puff in response. We loosed 9 more shells in quick succession, trapped in a haze of gunfire as we became more competitive. I had become so focused I had lost track of my students, who by now had completed their certifications and were calmly watching the spectacle unfold. I had missed my last shot, leaving 2 pots untouched, whereas Martino had destroyed all of his. We shook hands like gentlemen, dusted ourselves off, and I magnanimously permitted Martino to enjoy a victory lap. Jerry and Martino then organized their guns and packed the Barretts away for now to be cleaned later. Martino brought out 5 strange wooden rifles and handed one to each girl. Ladies, this gun is called the K98, a rifle used by a faction in Europe during various conflicts, over 300 years old and still in service. It's reliable, strong, powerful, and you lot will be using it for a little competition. Winner take all. Come now to the dugout. He said with glee. Each girl followed, carrying her rifle the way she was supposed to, stock down, barrel up, hands away from the trigger. They learned well. They went into a nearby bush-covered dugout by a small range nearby. There, in the distance, were 5 poles. On top of each was a coin facing us. Right, this is how it works. Use the knowledge you have learned, not only from your firearm certification, but also from watching us have our little contest. You have 5 rounds in your rifle and 5 chances to shoot the coin. The one who gets the coin wins. Clear? Jerry said. Yes, sir, they all responded. Such good students. Each girl had to adopt her own stance, and poor Deborah the fox girl had to be helped up onto a box because she was so short. They aimed and Martino held up a sword. He swung the sword down and yelled, "Fire!" The girls let loose a volley of fire, and poor Amari, one of the wood elves, nearly stumbled due to the recoil. She obviously wasn't expecting it. Once they all got used to the higher caliber of weapon, they readied for a second volley. Martino counted down, swung his sword, and they loosed a volley of fire again. I could see they were all close, very close, but not quite. They loaded, readied, and aimed. Martino swung the blade down one more time, and each girl fired in unison. All 5 coins blew off their poles at the same time. Each girl stood flabbergasted, jaw open, and eyes wide at the miracle they just witnessed. Well, shit. Looks like we're going to have to get 4 more of those medals for the trophy case, I said. The girls collected themselves and hugged each other in celebration, Jerry and Martino taking the time to collect their rifles before anything silly happened. While Martino and Jerry took the time to clean up, I checked the time and made haste to usher the girls back to school before the final bell. 2 days later, I passed by the trophy case. There in that shielded shelf were 5 medals, a tiny gun in its own little fancy case with each girl's name engraved on a different one. Enjoy another amazing story. The class stood in front of me, unable to take their eyes off my permanent smug grin. My period-accurate British uniform from World War I, the Gordon Highlanders specifically, was probably drawing more eyes than my smug smirk, to be honest. It was a kilted version, not trousered. My grandmother would be proud to see me in this thing. "Welcome, ladies!" I said with glee as I grabbed my satchel. Jessica, one of the many cat girls we had at the school, raised her hand. Poor Jessica, always. The first to ask a question. Sir? What's with the outfit? Because today we are going on a field trip, my dear. That's why. Your academic scores are the best in the school. I'm so damn proud of you, so I got permission to take you girls on a very, very special field trip, I replied with glee. 1. Of the elven girls in the back, Olivia started to raise her hand. I stopped her. And don't worry, I do have part of the school budget set out especially for this. I am, in fact, paying for lunch. So don't worry about finances, everything's all paid for. Whew, came her response. Right. Firstly, school first. Who can tell me what this is? I said, gesturing to my uniform, complete with weaponry. Alari, one of the dark elves, the class smarty pants hand shot right up. It's a uniform of a... Soldier, sir. I believe the uniform of a... What was it, a... Highlander? Correct! This is the uniform of a Scots Highlander, a soldier from the British side of the First World War. Now, who can tell me what this is? I said, and procured a rifle. With a bayonet from a nearby secured box, they hesitated. They were always nervous around guns. Then one of the cat girls, Lily, raised a hand up. Lee Field. Or something close enough. the Lee Enfield 1888. This is a bolt-action magazine-fed rifle used by the British Army during the war. This specific one, however, is part of my personal collection. This beauty was held by a soldier who saw action in the Somme, I said with a smirk. Mutterings of, "Is that even allowed?" and, "But I don't like guns. Mom said they are evil magic," came from them. Now, ladies, this is part of your curriculum and you have to learn about it anyway. You're part of Earth now. You need to learn as much as I did when I was a kid. Now, I'm not allowed to just let you have fun. No, you're on school time, so I have to make it educational, I said, and moved over to a nearby table. I removed some cloth coverings and stuff from a table, allowing them to look at some artifacts and things. A helmet, a pistol, a few bayonets, an inactive grenade, and some related text and displays, including a cutaway and design model for the rifle. Notebooks out, I said, and ordered them to sit in the makeshift class I laid out in the gymnasium. I didn't go too deep into the lore of the Joker arc of the British Empire and explained things about the uniform, demonstrating the kilt, accessories and belts that kept it all together. I showed them some of the marching, poses, and regimental salutes that came with it, even demonstrating with the rifle a bayonet charge. They scribbled away, my lecture being interrupted only by the occasional giggle or question. They got a little bit scared when I demonstrated the use and wear of a gas mask, explaining a bit of the lore behind that. But after an hour, I got through my lesson and told them to grab their satchels and backpacks. Present yourselves accordingly, ladies. We're about to go out in public. Backs straight, chins up, hands front. Very good. To the parking lot. By the left, march, I barked. I marched along with them, some girls just walking. The more enthusiastic or less socially tied down girls were actively marching with me, matching my steps. It was so cute. In the parking lot itself, a special surprise was waiting for them. Some of Moo boys from the Historical Reenactment Society I belonged to were waiting. With the principal and school's permission, of course. With a class of 20 students, I had to make sure we had plenty of room for the trip, so all of the guys were there with their private collections. The girls were a bit apprehensive, but marched along with me. I brought them alongside the display of military hardware. In the stands, classes had been interrupted and all of the students who had windows were staring at the display. The principal, a short, stocky wood elf woman, and the superintendent had both shown up to see what was going on. "And squad halt!" I yelled, the girls stopping, then giggling amongst each other for a bit. "Right, today is a special day, courtesy of the World Order Historical Preservation Society. I present to you tanks," I said. The boys got their cue from that, and the sound of tank engines suddenly roared into life. Each tank had been painted in the school's colors with a soluble paint, emblazoned with the school's emblem, and had a license plate bolted to the back for temporary road use. Presented before you, ladies, is a Sturmgeschütz 3 Stu G assault gun, a Panzerkampfwagen MK4 with shirts and skirts, a Matilda 2 medium tank, an Italian P40 heavy tank, a T-34 85M medium tank, and finally, a Semovente de 7534. I was going to bring one from my own personal collection, a Russian KV-2, but it's too heavy for use on public roads, so it's at the range waiting for us. Now, before we go, I have to lay down some ground rules, I yelled out above the engine noise. I waved a signal and the drivers used some less than ancient tech to quieten and muffle the roaring tank engine noises. A good decision. Some of these tanks didn't like being awake, so a muffle engine was a good option. I didn't ask what it was they used. I just appreciated the opportunity to teach my students. I explained safety procedures and they took notes. Never remove the helmet or your ear protections, with specially designed ear guards to keep the fox girls, elves, and cat girls' ears more comfy during the trip. I told them to tie their skirts down to not get caught, how to sit in the tank comfortably, and demonstrated how to safely walk over each tank so they don't get anything caught. The principal handed them some ties to neaten their hair and keep it out of the machinery. After about 10 minutes of explaining safety procedures, I let them climb onto their tank of choice, introduced themselves to the crew, who then explained to not touch the cannons or weaponry around the tanks. Yet, we trundled out of the parking lot towards the main road where a set of 3 state troopers' patrol cars were waiting for us. After double-checking necessary paperwork, they cleared us and sent us on our way, with 2 patrol cars deciding to stick around with us for their own lunch break. We trundled along the main road, getting side glances and open cheers from the passers-by as we made our way through intersections and through the main street of a large town. I sat in the commander's cupola in the Panzerfeuer at the front of the formation as we made our way to the town, police and state troopers giving us right-of-way through the bustling mini-metropolis. We arrived at the Burger King, and I ordered the same for everyone, a nice Whopper meal with fries and soda, except Griselda, the youngest of the students who didn't like fries. I just got her an extra serving of coleslaw. We drove into the parking lot and with a crowd gathering around us. The boys all hopped out of their vehicles, grabbing their period and faction-accurate equipment, and escorted the students into the restaurant so we could eat. For obvious reasons, the German boys were wearing World War I uniforms and gear instead of WW2 gear, for reasons that should be obvious. Lunch was a casual affair, and all round just a damn good time. The students flooded the boys and myself, of course, with a litany of questions which we gladly answered, with passers-by casually taking selfies, and pics with uniformed officers, and Burger King themselves offering to take a professional photo with us all another day for a promotion they were doing. When lunch was done, we mounted up our tanks again and drove about 40 minutes away to a nearby gun range that had a vehicle track. The vehicles all parked in the dirt field by the range, and I held a full sermon on firearm safety protocol and made absolutely sure they knew that any violation of safety protocol would in fact result in damage to their academic record. I made sure they knew I wasn't screwing around when it came to the task at hand. Then came the fun part. Right. So, here's the most important question. Who want a boom to big gun? I said, to a cheer from the boys and immediate hand raises from every student. Okay, we'll do it the hard way. Question. What was the first ever armored vehicle or tank to have a traversable turret mechanism? I asked. A few moments of silence followed and Jessica the cat girl raised her hand. I think it was called the FT something? 17? Correct. The French Renault FT-17 was the very first tank ever developed and deployed in battle equipped with a turret traversal mechanism. Congrats, Jessica. You get dibs on firing the first shot. She squealed in delight and hurried towards me. Before we started, I used a mechanism nearby, which was a replica of the gun carriage used by the Matilda II for demonstration purposes, and showed each one how to load, aim, and fire safely. When the demonstration was done, I hopped into the Matilda, which was the cheapest to operate for sustained fire exercises, which this was about to be. Every girl would get her chance to try to fire the cannon at least once. She eagerly followed, and I had to calm her down a bit. I put her in the gunner's seat and sat myself in the loader's seat. The Ordnance QF 2-pounder 40mm gun was ready to be used. I loaded the first shell, making sure she saw exactly what to do. I slipped the shell into the breech, yelling, "Live shell loaded!" when the shell was in. I poked my head out of the cupola and said, "Fire in the hole," and put Jessica in the gunner's seat. I showed her where to aim and what to do. "Ready. Aim. Fire!" I yelled. Jessica's finger pulled the trigger. The entire tank shook from the force of the gun's recoil, the cabin's interior reverberating from the violent impact. Outside, preparations for the sonic boom from the shell were adequate. None of the girls even flinched from the noise, but they did flinch from the cannon itself actually firing. The shell whizzed through the air, missing a target propped up against a hill by a few feet. The shell was a hollow fragmentation shell filled with blue dye powder, designed to disintegrate on impact and create a show more than do any damage. Jessica was shivering from the effect. I leaned in and gave her a little hug to calm her down and let her get used to the shock. That felt kind of good, she said with a soft but scared giggle. Yeah, that's good. Exhilarating, isn't it? It gets so much more intense the bigger the gun you use, too. The explosion is also bigger. Feeling okay, hun? I asked, gently patting her back. Yee, she said with excitement. I expended the empty shell casing from the mechanism, tossing it in a basket behind me. I let Jessica out and she rejoined her classmates, who immediately swamped her with questions and concerns. I repeated the process 18 more times, each girl getting the chance to unleash a shell to the joy of the crowd. Each time I asked them a question, deliberately avoiding a particular student when doing so. The boys carried on doing their usual thing in the background as I carried out my lesson, checking their own gear and making sure their tanks were not sinking into the dirt on the range too much, occasionally moving their vehicles to a new spot. Finally, we came to Amalia, a high elf girl who had the best score of any student in school. Just as she was about to enter the Matilda, I stopped her. "Am I not allowed to fire the gun, sir? Is something wrong?" she asked, pouting. "Nah, you're just the best student here, therefore you get the bigger gun. Come, the Sturmgeschütz is waiting." I patted her head and directed her to the Stug. The boys also mounted up, with myself in the loader's seat, Brother Boris in the driver's seat, and Brother Lowe on the commander's seat. I helped Amalia in the gunner's seat and let her figure her way around it. "Squad ready!" I barked. "Engine on!" Brother Boris yelled. "Panzer vor!" Brother Lowe yelled in response. The Stoogie charged off the platform and onto the dirt track, where we did a short obstacle course in record time. Amalia and I both stuck our heads out of the cupolas above the tank, and she squealed with glee as we charged our way through the course. Splashing mud and roaring engines did not dissuade her from having the time of her life as we trundled at a good lick through the freshly rained-on course. She was having the time of her life, and she deserved it. After about 5 minutes or so, we got around to the actual firing range part of the course, and I headed back into my loader's seat. I showed her the mechanism, demonstrated with a fake shell for how it worked, and set the empty casing aside. I showed her how to aim it and showed her the target. Just as I was about to load a shell, she stopped everything. "Wait! Wait! This is too good! I have to!" she yelled, stopping everything. "Are you okay?" I asked as she moved out of the seat back out of the cupola. She mockingly shuffled herself out of the cupola and deliberately moved herself so her butt got stuck in it a bit. "Ugh! Help me step tank, I'm stug!" she said with an ooh-woo face and cheekily putting her pinky to her cheek. A watching crowd face-slapped and all of us burst into laughter from it. I half laughed, half cringed as this elven lady pulled one of the silliest jokes in the tank world. She giggled to herself and wriggled back inside as the crowd laughed with applause at the funny. Needless to say, with the laughing crowd, her giggling classmates and chuckling police nearby, she got extra credit for that. She squeezed herself back into the cupola, onto the seat, and back into the gun position. She had to wait a bit while we got ourselves back together, either from nearly dying by cringe in the case of Brother Boris, or laughter in the case of Brother Lowe. Eventually, we got ourselves back together, and I watched carefully as she loaded the shell. "Live shell loaded!" she yelled out. Brother Lowe began his signature command in Polish. "Trzaj! Dwa! Jaden! Kurwa!" The 75mm cannon fired, the blast several times louder and more pronounced than the Matilda's 2-pounder gun, the shockwave larger and more vicious. The cabin reverberated with the impact, and I quickly grabbed the expended shell casing. I didn't give Amalia much time to respond as I tapped her on the shoulder to get her attention as I loaded and readied another shell. She was breathing heavily and shaking, but like a trooper, she soldiered on and fired another shell, this one actually hitting one of the targets we had on display. The hidden tannerite under the targets detonated and created a nice boom on the side of the hill. I loaded and made Amalia fire 6 more shells, destroying 3 more targets before finally saying, "Bingo shells," and forcing us to return to the range where everyone was waiting. As soon as we came to a full stop, the tank's engine off, Amalia jumped out of the tank, nearly stumbling, and charged into her waiting classmates' excited cheers and hugs. They learned something and knew that lessons were learned, passions inflamed, extra credit earned. Best field trip ever. Thanks for diving into this story with me. Don't miss out on the next one. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think.